Hey everybody, let's go ahead and get started with section 1 from chapter 13. We're going to be talking about Supreme Court cases in this chapter. So everything is going to be centered around that, around Supreme Court cases. This section is going to be looking specifically at the Supreme Court cases relating to the First Amendment. So there's going to be a lot of cases that I'm discussing. It could feel a little bit complicated to follow because the book kind of jumps from case to case, but I'm going to do my best to have this lecture make sense. There is 5 questions from this section on the quiz, and the 5 questions from section 1 are going to be fill in the blank. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to be on page 393 in your textbook if you would like to follow along. The First Amendment freedoms that you have guaranteed to you due to the First Amendment is the freedom of religion, which we're going to discuss first in this section, the freedom of speech and how that is actually not just guaranteed, but ways in which it's limited for you. Freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of petition. Freedom of religion is probably one of the 2 most discussed aspects of the First Amendment, the second being freedom of speech. The First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Because of these 2 guarantees, this sentence is known as the Establishment and the Free Exercise Clause. So first, let's discuss the Establishment Clause. We know that the Constitution, and especially with this First Amendment, we know that there cannot be an established religion. The government cannot have an established religion, that you are guaranteed the right to practice your religion or to practice no religion as you see fit. And the framers felt that it was important to have a wall between church and state. The Supreme Court has done its best to maintain this wall, but there is a disagreement on how high that wall should be. Where exactly this line should be drawn. How much freedom do we allow when it comes to religion, or how much do we restrict it? And so one of the ways this has been discussed or maybe even argued the most is as it pertains to prayer in school. In 1962, in Engel v. Vitale, the Supreme Court banned a prayer required in New York public schools. The court ruled that it is not the business of the government to compose official prayers. And then from this point forward, cases continued to be passed that furthered this distinction, this separation. In Abington School District versus Shemp, it continued to strike down requirements that schools started with Bible readings or starting the Lord's Prayer. Wallace v. Jaffrey, the court went even further and rejected Alabama's required minute of silence set aside for independent prayer each morning, and it just continued from there. Here is a breakdown of some of the most well-known cases relating to religion in public places. I'll let you read that at your leisure. Freedom of religion is something that I think is quite important to many individuals for a variety of reasons. The teaching of religion is something that it's a little confusing. So, for example, a school like at A-Team, for example, because we're vendors that work with Ocean Grove, which is a charter school, right? Whether it's, here at A-Team or public school, instructors cannot teach religion saying, this is what the Bible says about this, therefore you should do this or this, right? What we can do is give instruction about religion as an education topic. For example, in an English course, I can teach parts of the New Testament as literature. For example, I can pull verses from the Quran to discuss as literature. I can pull sections of the Bhagavad Gita when discussing history, right? So you can have instruction in a non-religious manner, but it cannot include religious beliefs, the teaching of religious beliefs. So one of the most famous cases to further the separation of church and state came in 1987 with Edwards v. Aguilar. So Louisiana law required that in science class, if you're teaching evolution, that the instructor must also teach creationism as two parallel versions of or explanations of events. However, this Louisiana law was voided, and the court said that creationism should not be taught in school as an alternative theory, an alternative view, because creation is a religious belief, whereas evolution is a scientific theory. So this, 1987 was 2 years after I was born. I still, now as a 34-year-old adult, hear people talking about this very topic. So this is a very controversial issue, and I think it's healthy that we continue to discuss what freedom of religion looks like. So the free exercise clause, okay, makes freedom of religious belief an absolute right. And the courts have drawn a distinction between the right to believe and the right to express beliefs through actions. So a really famous case discussing this is Reynolds v. United States. So George Reynolds was a Mormon who practiced Mormonism at a time when polygamy was still a belief of the church. It no longer is. It's no longer condoned by the LDS church, but at this time, it was a belief that they held that in order for a man to go to heaven or for a woman to go to heaven, they had to participate in plural marriage. And Reynolds argued that because this was a core tenet of his belief system, that he should not be punished for practicing polygamy, and that polygamy should in fact be allowed. It was his religious right. The Supreme Court made a decision that said basically there are ills that can come to society from the practice of polygamy. And so they ruled that while it was a religious belief, because it contradicted with what they felt was best for society, it was not okay. It was subversive of good order, is in fact what they called it. This led to a principle known as compelling interest, the compelling interest test. So this requires government to have a compelling reason for banning religious practice as necessary to protect society. So we can see this in a few different court cases. In West Virginia v. West Virginia v. Barnett in 1943, the courts upheld a student's right to refuse the saluting of a flag. There was a student who is a Jehovah's Witness, and in his religion they believed that it was idolatry to salute the flag or to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And the court said there is not a compelling reason to force this child to do these things. There was no harm to society to allow this child to opt out of this religious practice. And so they said that it was in the student's right to do this. In Sherbert v. Verner, a decision in South Carolina was reversed. They denied the unemployment benefits of a woman who was fired for refusing to work on Saturday. The courts evaluated the decision, and they said, you know what? Society did not gain enough that society did not gain more than this person lost by their freedom to follow their religious beliefs. So it was more important to allow this woman to take Saturdays off, to refuse to work Saturdays off, to refuse to work Saturday, and to be continued to have unemployment benefits, that these two were not in contradiction, that it was more important to ensure this woman's beliefs than it was to punish her by removing these unemployment benefits. So it did not pass the compelling interest test. In Goldman v. Weinberger, on the other hand, there was a Jewish man who believed, for religious reasons, in wearing a skull cap, the yarmulke. And the Air Force said that it was not okay. He could not wear the yarmulke. They said that it was important to promote unity among soldiers, and that if an individual is allowed to wear clothing that sets them apart, that separates them, it will go against the intended goal. And the Supreme Court upheld the Air Force's ban. They decided that there was a compelling interest in preventing this individual from practicing what they believe for their religion. So you can see that compelling interest is a really important distinction when it comes to deciding what is okay and what's not okay in regards to a person's religious beliefs. I'm now going to discuss freedom of speech, which starts on page 396 in your textbook. The most important thing to understand about the freedom of speech is that there is speech that is protected, and there is speech that is not protected. So more than discussing what is protected, we're going to look at what is not protected. Unprotected speech is going to be the answer to question number 3 on the quiz. Fighting words, defamatory speech, lewd and profane language are examples of unprotected speech. So, one example of unprotected speech is fighting words. Words that are used to insult or anger people into violence. You cannot use words to incite violence. Defamatory speech is not okay. One example of defamatory speech is libel, which is actually the answer to question number 4. Libel is anytime somebody makes false statements that can damage a person's reputation that is published in print or other media. When it is spoken, it's slander. When it's written, it's libel. All right, so defamatory speech is not detected, and lewd and profane speech is not detected. That is speech that is vulgar or obscene. For example, the FCC limits what is allowed to be said on TV or on the radio. In school, your speech, what you say on campus, can be limited. We can make rules that say you can't go around using curse words on campus. We have children as young as 5 years old. There is a compelling interest, right, in limiting this speech and allowing other students to feel safe. So the Supreme Court has declared that students do not shed their constitutional rights of expression at the schoolhouse gate. However, student speech can be limited more than the speech of the average citizen. Okay, this is important to understand. Also, leading into quiz question number 1, the right of citizens to hold, explore, exchange, express, and debate ideas is called freedom of expression. Freedom of expression. That is quiz question number 1. All right, so here is some types of protected and unprotected speech. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but this slide is here in the slides on Google Classroom that you can refer to during the exam. Freedom of petition and assembly. The answer to quiz question number 5, the right of assembly, that is your answer, the right of assembly, is the right to join and form groups and to gather for any legal purpose. All right, so make sure you write that down. So looking at the freedom of petition and assembly, you have the right to petition the government to for a redress of grievances. So, for example, if you feel that there has been a wrong committed, that something that has been done that is wrong by the government, you can ask them to address this. Petition them for a redress of grievances, to address what was done wrong and to fix it, okay? To remove the cause of your complaint and to make things right. You also have the right of assembly. The right of assembly. Again, that's the answer to question number 5. So you have the right to gather, to join, to form groups like clubs or interest groups or labor unions, and to gather for any peaceful and lawful purpose. Okay, so if you're gathering to incite people to violence, that would not be protected. For example, in 1927 in Whitney v. California, there was a conviction. The Supreme Court upheld a conviction of a woman for membership in the Communist Labor Party. And this is because the party believed in overthrowing the government through acts of violence. And so her membership was not protected, not because of the beliefs of, in communism, but because in gathering and in believing of acts of violence and calling for acts of violence. That's what was not protected. It violated the belief that you can gather for any peaceful and lawful purpose. And that's the important part. The court has been more restrictive of students' rights. For example, schools have the right to control the time, the place, and the manner of student gatherings. And there can also be restrictions set on school clubs. However, the Equal Access Act of 1984 prohibited schools and districts from forbidding or discriminating against any club because of its religious or philosophical viewpoints. So at 18, we could have a Jewish students club. We could have a communist students club. As long as you guys are not gathering to incite violence, right, or to break the law, this is okay, right? One caveat is that as long as clubs are allowed that are for non-academic purposes, like chess club, etc., then clubs for religions or other philosophical viewpoints must be allowed, but teachers cannot join them. School staff is not permitted to be members of clubs that call for specific religious beliefs. So, school officials do not have to allow any student organization that preaches hate or violence or that engages in illegal activity. And that is one way that your freedom of petition and assembly can be legally limited. Let's see. I think we actually covered all of these points. Thank you for listening in. And I hope that you guys got a lot out of this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and send me a message and I'll do my best to answer.